Joining us now, without further ado, on Feel Good Friday, Sheriff David Clarke of Newsmax fame, and he's also the senior advisor to WeBuildTheWall.us. He's also a Cubs fan, and the Cubs are 13-3, so he's riding high right now. Sheriff, great to have you.
John, it's a pleasure. I agree with you on the college football front. I think the Big Ten moved too quickly. Maybe they'll reconsider, but somebody's got to plow through this. Someone has to man up and say, look, we know what we're dealing with here. We know there's some risk, but there's risks in life, especially with football. You know, you can have a catastrophic injury, and but at some point, because we know what we do now, that this disease is not, or virus, I should say, it's not a disease. It's not as fatal as we were led to believe. It's time for somebody to man up and plow through this thing, and let's get sports back into a full operation. I am not a fan of sports without fans, though, and I haven't watched any of it. I won't watch baseball. I don't care. You know, I don't like that social media, social justice message on the mound. I don't like with no fans, so I'm out. For now, I'm out.
Oh, Sheriff, your Cubs are 13. Do I have to tell you every week when you come on how the Cubs are doing? Is that the way this is going to work?
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
Come on, Sheriff. They're 13-3.
No, if I can't go down to Wrigley for a couple times a year like I like to do, no, I'm not interested.
All right, Sheriff. Well, I'll tell you every week how your Cubs are doing while you're boycotting the Cubs. But what about this Conference USA, man? I know I'm about the only person covering it to this extent because everybody's focused on the Big 12, ACC, and SEC. But it's Conference USA is they're just a mid-major, but it's a great conference. It's got a lot of teams in it. It stretches basically from like Massachusetts all the way down to Texas. It's like the catch-all conference for everybody. But it's a really good conference. But, I mean, it took that conference chairman, you know, and it took those schools the courage to be the first ones to say, screw you, we're playing football. And then the Big 12 went right after that, and I think ACC and SEC follows. But like you said, it takes one, Sheriff, right?
Yeah, I was not surprised. I had a sneaky suspicion that the SEC would play football this year. And the Big 12, yeah, I'm not surprised there either. So, you know, I'm a little disappointed in the Big 10 like you. But, you know, Conference USA, you're right. Every year they have one or two teams that contend. You know, they end up sneaking into the top 10, and unfortunately they lose a game at the end of the year that puts them out of qualifying for the playoff. But they play some solid football in Conference USA.
Yeah, so it just takes one. So I'm excited about that they had the courage to do it. But it really shows you if somebody, you know, one person with courage makes a majority. And that's really what you had. You had one conference finally went out and said, you know what, we're not going to screw our football players, our soccer players. We're going to let them go forward and play, and good for them. I'm so happy that we're going to get college football. And, you know, look, it's COVID. We're going to have to work it out. There's limited fans, limited seating. All that will get worked out. But the first thing you have to do is get on the field and decide you're going to play. We're with Sheriff David Clarke with us, former sheriff of Milwaukee, former Democrat, and now a regular contributor to Newsmax. Go to newsmaxtv.com, newsmax.com. Sheriff, wow, I got to get to Richmond. I live here in the area. Our city's burning down. Our mayor, LeVar Stoney, basically telling the police to stand down. Windows at the Omni Hotel the other night getting smashed. We got a special session coming up in Virginia, and LeVar Stoney sends a letter to the governor, and he says the number one priority that we have in Richmond, the number one thing you have to do, legalize pot. So Stoney says the answer to Richmond burning down is to get stoned and smoke doobies. What planet am I on?
Planet delusional. That's what I call it. You know, yeah, the mayor, he's out of touch with reality. It's kind of interesting that as, you know, everything's falling down around him, he would call for something like that. That's not high on the voters' priorities list. He knows that, but he doesn't care. As a matter of fact, some more studies have come out on the use of marijuana because all these states have been bamboozled when it comes to legalizing this stuff, or even legalizing the medical marijuana. We haven't been given the truth. I saw 2 studies last week. One that said women who smoke dope while they're pregnant, and let's be honest, some do, not many, but some do, have a higher risk of having that child be autistic. Another study came out recently that said smoking marijuana increases heart disease. So, when you hear stuff like that, and we've all known this, we're not shocked by those types of studies, but they're hidden from public view when the legislature is convened to talk about legalizing marijuana. The number one priority of any level of government is to secure the personal safety of citizens. It's not about smoking dope. It's not about having the police stand down or defunding the police. It's preserve the personal safety of citizens. And if you can't do that, John, then we don't need government.
I'm with you on that 100%. Sheriff David Clarke with us. All right. Kamala Harris, picked by Joe Biden, kind of a phony, right? I mean, she's been all over the board on the same thing. I mean, she called Joe Biden, she called him a segregationist, she called him a racist. She basically called him a sex criminal in so many words. I mean, she said a lot of bad things about him during the campaign. Now they're all lovey-dovey. The Kamala Harris pick, I mean, look, on one hand, this is the first woman of color to be chosen for VP of a major party ticket. She could become president one day, so that's could be a celebration in and of itself. What are your thoughts?
A big swing and a miss for the Biden campaign and for the Democrats. They boxed themselves in. Most politicians realize you should never paint yourself into a corner. Always give yourself some options. When Sleepy Joe came out and said he was going to pick an African-American woman as his running mate, first of all, there's some question as to whether Kamala Harris is actually African-American. Her father's from Jamaica, her mother's from India. Nothing wrong with that. But she never embraced her Jamaican heritage. She tries to cloak herself around being an African-American. Don Lemon last year said she's not an African-American. I don't want to get into that back and forth there, but the fact is she has no core. She does not know who she is. You mentioned that she's a fraud. If you cut her open, it'd be hollow because she doesn't have a core, not a core set of beliefs all over the map. She said she believed Joe Biden's accuser, the Tara Reid.
Tara Reid.
Yeah. Harris said she believed Tara Reid. And she also said she believed all these other women that came up and said Biden acted inappropriately in terms of touching them and grabbing them and kissing their hair, kissing their head, sniffing their hair. Harris said, I believe those women. So now all of a sudden she's willing to get into bed with Joe Biden. Shows that she has no core. She has no values, no belief system. She's the one that co-authored a bill that would allow transgendered men to play in women's sports, a federal law forcing schools to do that. You can see how out of touch she is with mainstream America. That is a fringe issue that overwhelmingly people do not support, but she co-authored a bill that did that. But the scary thing, John, and you just mentioned this, which I think people need to focus on, there's a poll that says 68% of those polled don't believe that Joe Biden will finish his first term. She very well may assume the reins of power in the Oval Office by default, and that's scary because she's ambitious. She will stab you in the back and then crawl over your body to get to her next, goal. She's done that her whole career. This is scary from that standpoint, but I'll tell you what it didn't do. It did nothing to energize and motivate the black vote, and that could spell doom for the Democrats. Blacks don't trust her. That was proven during the primary. She never got more than single digits in terms of black support. She went out hard to get it, never materialized. Not in South Carolina, it's a black voter-rich state. She registered in single digits. No state that she was in did she capture the black vote. So that's problematic from that standpoint, which is why I think.
Why didn't she? All right, I want to get let's get to one of her clips, and then I want to comment on that, and also say why didn't she resonate? I mean, a serious candidate, black woman, serious kind of first ever. It just didn't resonate. Didn't resonate with anybody, let alone blacks, whites either. But I want to delve into that further. But first, let's get to cut one here, Kara, for the sheriff. Here's some of this stuff is really funny. Here's Kara saying that with Biden's health plan, well, millions of people will lose their coverage. Now it's her health plan. Cut one.
When you look at the plan that the vice president is offering, as many as 10 million people will be without coverage.
So I guess so. Her plan now, 10 million people without coverage. So let me ask you something. Comment on that, and then why didn't she resonate with black voters?
Okay, on her health coverage plan, her Medicare for All, which she backed off, which even within the Democrat Party, it didn't have a lot of support. Let's look at it this way. It would cost $3 trillion a year, and she said it would take 10 years to fully implement. She said that Joe Biden looked at her and said, if your plan is so great, why is it going to take 10 years to implement? Which I thought was bingo, right?
Yeah.
Why she doesn't resonate with black voters, she's not emotionally connected. Right? You have to be emotionally connected to the black vote in order to secure them. She has never been emotionally connected. She's always on the wrong side of issues that are important to black, like criminal justice reform. She kept people locked up in prison longer than their sentence to secure inmate labor. She supported the death penalty. She was against body cams for law enforcement officers. So you look at this, and those things are important to black voters. So she never connected herself emotionally, which is very important to do, which is why I said she's not going to do much in terms of energizing the black vote. I think that's good for, our side, the conservative side, the Trump side. In the end, I think they're going to have buyer's remorse for taking Harris.
All right, here's Harris. Here's Harris on Joe Biden's how he handled the Anita Hill hearings. This is another classic. Cut two.
I think there is no question that committee did not do right by Anita Hill or any of the other women
Not just that committee led by Joe Biden,
who were prepared to come forward. He said it himself, and I agree with him.
So he said she didn't do right by Anita Hill. She also said that she believed Tara Reid and Joe's accusers. She also kind of intimated that he was kind of creepy, and now they're BFFs. I mean, I don't know. Of course, the fake news isn't going to play any of this up, but we are, because it's too funny. I mean, how did they reconcile Anita Hill and Tara Reid?
Well, what they're counting on, Biden and Harris and the Democrats, is that they'll have cover from the liberal media. They will never bring any of this stuff up, but it's hard to get away from. It's hard to ignore. At some point, she will be facing this. She's kind of the exact opposite of what Biden is in terms of their plans. In terms of, she attacked him on busing. If you remember that, Joe opposed federal funding for busing to achieve school integration.
All right, here. Why don't we get that? Hang on. Hold that thought, Sheriff. Carol, let's get to cut three. Kamala Harris on I Was a Little Girl.
We have also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden, I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. Mm-hmm. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
Sheriff?
Damn. That's all I can say. I mean, that's why I said these two are, they couldn't be more opposite, really. And she really whacked him around in a couple of those debates when he got in. And now, like I said, she's willing to climb into bed with him just to get close to the Oval Office. So I that's why I call it a swing and a miss. I think the Democrats, I'll tell you who scared me. And it kept me up late some nights thinking about it. I think Biden would have done himself a whole lot of good if he'd have taken Stacey Abrams. Now, I'm not a Stacey Abrams fan, but I'll tell you what, Stacey Abrams is emotionally connected to black folks, to black voters. She's got this infectious smile. She's got charisma. I think she would have energized the black vote, black women, a lot more than Kamala Harris does. So when he announced that it was Kamala Harris, I said, oh, man, did we dodge a bullet on that one? But, they're stuck with her now.
Interesting analysis, Sheriff. I got a roll on that, but that is an interesting analysis. Sheriff Clarke, to recap here, saying he was afraid of Stacey Abrams, ran for governor and Georgia state senator there because she emotionally connected with black women and men, where Kamala Harris does not. I hadn't thought of that, but the more I think about it, I think you're onto something. Absolutely. I was afraid of Michelle Obama. I mean, she's tough not to like, and but she was never really. She just didn't want. She didn't want to be on the Biden ticket. But Michelle Obama's going to be back. She'll be doing something. Maybe she'll run in 2024 because Sheriff Trump is going to win again. John Fredericks Radio Network. Hey, you can catch Sheriff Clarke on Newsmax. Go to Newsmax TV. Sheriff Clarke on Newsmax. Hey, Sheriff, thanks for being with us.